My name is Mark Forrest, and I'm the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, and I want to welcome you all here to wonderful Falmouth Town Hall. This is the first of a series of meetings that we are taking on the road, where we can spend more time talking directly with many of our municipal partners, town officials, on some of the great work that we're doing together here in Barnstable County. Before we begin, I just need to read this notice. This meeting of the Barnstable County Commissioners is being recorded and will be conducted via in-person means in accordance with the applicable law. People wishing to participate may do so in person. Those who would like to be recognized during public comments or at later portions of the meeting, please notify the chair to be recognized, raise your hand, wait to be acknowledged when that portion of the meeting begins. The time is 11:31. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum present, and I'd like to ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I would like to ask everyone to join us in a brief moment of silence to reflect on the bravery and the sacrifices of those who have put their lives on the line in service to our country, protecting our safety, protecting our freedom and our democracy. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment, but before I begin, I'd just like to make sure we introduce all of the county staff here on the dais. I'm going to start with Robin.
Robin Young, Executive Assistant.
Vera?
Vera Harik, Assistant County Administrator.
And I'm Michael Dutton, the County Administrator.
And
I'm Ron Bergstrom, County Commissioner.
And Sheila Lyons, County Commissioner.
That's great, thank you. And Mark Forrest, Chairman. The next portion of the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to seek recognition for public comments? Please come to the podium, to the mic, and speak your piece. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the next part of the agenda. Do we have anybody online seeking recognition?
It's an in-person meeting. That's just for staff attendance at meetings.
All right, that's good. So the first item on our general business agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 14th, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously. Leading off for our regular business is a discussion and an update with the town of Falmouth. And I see Heather Goldstone is here, Mike Renshaw, I see Peter Johnson-Staub, I see all the other movers and shakers here within the town of Falmouth. Doug Brown, can't forget Doug, of course. And we're setting aside this portion of the meeting so we can have a conversation with you and better understanding some of your priorities, some of the work that you're doing, and some of the things that you might think looking ahead we need to really pay closer attention to. So I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to you. Is it Heather? Am I turning it over to? And Heather, feel free to join us or go to the wherever. This is your place. Go to the podium. Okay. And is that Jack Richardson I just saw walk in on the board?
Experience things from the other side of the table. So thank you for being here today. And I really appreciate this effort to get out into the towns and increase that dialogue. I think a lot of what you're going to hear from me, I already see reflected on your agenda, and you're probably already aware that there are issues, so just kind of reinforcing that. I think something that is really front and center here in Falmouth right now that I'll say I never anticipated being a major issue that I would address from the Select Board in Falmouth is immigration. Our economy here in Falmouth is largely powered by our large immigrant community. We are a diverse community, and we have seen the impacts of increased immigration enforcement, and we are seeing a lot of fear. We're seeing that ripple through our schools, through our community, and through our economy at this point, and are really trying to grapple with what we as a town and perhaps what we as a region can do to ensure the safety and the continued thriving of all of the residents in our community. So that's one really important issue right now. The other thing that I would say is really front and center for the Select Board is fiscal stability. A number of you were at the MMA conference, the Massachusetts Municipal Association conference last week. That association put out a report, I think that was a month or so ago, on the fiscal pressures facing towns and called that the perfect storm. I think the ingredients in that storm are a little bit different in Falmouth and perhaps across the Cape than they are for a lot of towns. Some of the meetings that I joined to hear from other municipalities over the past few months as they were putting together that report really focused on schools as one of the major drivers. And certainly our schools are feeling pressure. But I would say where we're seeing the greatest pressure is from a few other places. Our operating budgets are strained and increasingly will be strained moving forward simply by salary costs. We have increased salaries, rightfully so, over the past few years to fairly compensate our incredibly dedicated town staff who are facing the housing and affordability crisis that all of our residents are facing, right? So that puts an additional strain on our operating budgets. Our capital budgets are dramatically expanding. Wastewater infrastructure, no surprise to you, is a major driver of that, as well as addressing aging infrastructure and new needs. And then we're also feeling pressure. That's I guess I wouldn't say those capital budgets are status quo, but right, that's kind of doing what we need to do, and we're facing increasing pressure to go beyond that. We have additional water quality and environmental issues we need to grapple with. We are facing issues of coastal and climate impacts and needing to increase our resilience, go above and beyond, and have some really hard conversations, make some hard decisions that are frankly long overdue. And then there is the need to try to address the housing and affordability crises that our residents are facing. We are looking at ways to reduce the tax burden, to increase affordable housing, and constantly thinking about what else we can be doing. Right, so there's just a lot of pressures on the fiscal front. Especially addressing this body, I want to say thank you for the many efforts at the county level to address a lot of these issues, right? So real estate transfer fee to help create additional revenue for affordable housing, the efforts to advance that, really appreciated. The ongoing programs at the county level to help municipalities and residents handle the costs of wastewater infrastructure improvements, and advocacy for the to make tax credits to residents for wastewater infrastructure refundable, so that our lowest income residents can be fully supported in making what are really expensive and really important investments in their properties. And later in your agenda today, the dredging system, right? I would say, if anything, and I'm sure you hear this from everyone all the time, we need more, right? Everybody's constantly scrambling for the resources within the time window to be able to do the dredging that we need to do, to be able to nourish beaches on the other end of that equation. But that program obviously really vital to our town. So I do want to hand it over to our town manager, Mr. Mike Renshaw, to talk with you about maybe some not so great news, a little bit of a new and unexpected challenge that we're facing here in the town, and then welcome conversation with you. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. It is a pleasure. First off, I want to thank you all for setting aside time to come out to the communities. I think this is a great initiative. We're happy to have you, hosting you here in Falmouth. As a former county manager in North Carolina and Georgia, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you all do on a daily basis, and I certainly have a lot of respect for Mr. Dutton and the work that he does and his staff. So I appreciate the role that you play and the importance of it. I want to, in the 2.5 years I've been here as Falmouth Town Manager, I've had an opportunity to work very closely with a couple of those functions at the county level. Really, really pleased. I know on the agenda later we're going to hear from the MassTech folks. What a tremendous asset that is for the community, for the region. And working with Brian and the folks at MassTech, I've been nothing but impressed with the professionalism, the dedication, and the amount of knowledge that they bring to the table. So thank you all for supporting that effort. I also am happy to report that recently working with Michael, the county administrator, I think we're close to working out terms for a joint composting initiative. I think that's going to be a huge, tremendous upside. So we're all excited about that over a joint base, I think is the pilot site. So a lot of great opportunities facing us, but a lot of, as Vice Chair Goldstone mentioned, a lot of challenges as well, financially, fiscally, and otherwise. Want to, as the Vice Chair said recently, last week, I was briefed on an issue that I wanted to bring to the Board of County Commissioners' attention. It's the southern pine beetle. We recently had a positive identification here in Falmouth. It's limited, but because of the weather, we can't really get out and determine kind of the extent of the issue. But our tree warden, Jeremiah Pearson, met with myself and other staff, and we had some membership representatives from the 300 Committee and DCR that were on site last week to kind of talk about it. As you all know, you may know, it's been over on the vineyard for some time, and they've tested some different approaches. The conversation I wanted to have this morning with the county commissioners is to find out perhaps what resources might be available at the county level. I know this is typically handled at the state DCR level, but I think importantly, what we're trying to do now is I think community education is going to be tremendously important. We need to get a better handle on the extent, I said, as the weather improves, so that what we're trying to do now is mobilize a volunteer base, train some volunteers to go out and kind of monitor and report through GIS applications, so we can get a better, more definitive understanding of where these southern pine beetles are. It's, like I said earlier, it's a limited geographic area now in town, but as you all know, unfortunately, they spread very quickly. And there's just not, unfortunately, a whole lot that can be done to eradicate them once they take a foothold. So we're trying to get an early start on it, and again, it was just reported last week. So I wanted to get that on the radar of the board so that folks are aware of it, and certainly we're going to do some community outreach and education here in Falmouth. And in the surrounding communities, hopefully we'll hear this and also take notice because it's, again, they spread very quickly. And I brought our tree warden and DPW director if there's any kind of specific technical questions that I can't answer if you have time for a discussion on it, so that they can help us out with some of those details. But again, thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to host you, and I understand we're the first of these meetings.
Roadshow.
So the roadshow, thank you. And we're really honored to have you this morning, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to begin the conversation, I'd like to start off, if it's okay. I want to commend the Falmouth Board for having a very sort of thoughtful and respectful dialogue on the topic of immigration. I think, as we all know, this is a very challenging topic for discussion, and I followed the meeting, I followed the coverage in the media, and I thought you did an outstanding job in creating a space and a place for the community to have a conversation about this topic. It's a really challenging one, and I think you really did a wonderful job in bringing the community together to speak out. I even want to commend you from the dissident from Yarmouth who was invited, or who was allowed to give permission to speak. The fact is you opened it up for people from all across, not just Falmouth, but from around the Cape, which I think is important. My question for you on this, and maybe it's best directed to Heather, is I got the impression that you're thinking of doing a series of these forums and discussions, and I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit more and expansively about where you might see this go, and obviously, we have other select board members here as well. I think we're all interested in hearing from what you all have to say about where this is going, and if you're going to take a stand or a position or provide some guidance. I know our police departments are somewhat challenged by this as well.
Well, I'll take maybe the latter part of that question first. We did issue a statement in July of this year calling for ethical behavior on the part of federal law enforcement officials, calling for traditional collegial communication with local law enforcement so that we could be better aware of when and where there might be disruptive activities. So we have, to that extent, I think, taken a stand. And that is a statement that we, in reading back through that statement, Jack, actually, Mr. Richardson read that at the forum that you were referencing last week. And I think hearing that, all of us had a moment of just going, wow. The world has changed a lot in 7 months, and it may be time to revisit that statement. I think as with many groups, individuals, other municipalities, at the county level and at the state level, we're still really grappling with what might be in our power to control and to do in addition to a statement and kind of taking a stand. But that's what we have done to date. In terms of additional meetings, I think we went into that forum with an open mind, that we were, not that we had a set plan for a series of, 5 events of X, Y, and Z format, but really wanting to see what we heard from the community in terms of appetite and needs. And one thing that we heard was a lot of interest in additional training in how to be effective bystanders and how to de-escalate tense situations. And there was an offer from our police lieutenant Hurt, who is our ABLE certified officer, active bystanders in law enforcement. Is that what ABLE stands for? He's trained to actually be a trainer in active bystandership. And so we're exploring what the options might be, whether it's, he made an offer of collaboration to help train residents in active bystandership. So we're exploring whether that's the right avenue or some sort of other offering to the community so that our community members feel more equipped to handle really tense situations that they might encounter. If anybody else wants to jump in, I don't think we have any more formal plans than that, but I'm certainly open to ideas for what else could be done to further this conversation. I'll hand it to Mr. Brown.
Hi, Doug Brown, Select Board. So I also want to just highlight the fact that it was more community understanding of what the town's position is. We want people to feel safe. We want people that are documented or undocumented to know that the police department is here to support them if they're victims of crime, not to be afraid to come forward. That was a main part of it, what I felt was important. But also there's a lot of services. Sometimes people are fearful to even go out and go shopping, so there's services like you can have Service Center will help you with food deliveries, and there's a lot of infrastructure in Falmouth that is helpful to people. That was part of the message as well.
That's great. Thanks, Doug. I'd like to stick with this topic, and I'd like to invite my fellow commissioners to chime in.
I'm just curious, was there any concern on part of the town that by making a statement that there would be blowback, say from even the federal government? You're bringing attention to yourself. I've heard this, and I'm asking, was that a part of a discussion?
Jack Richardson, Select Board, and now I guess a groupie for your guys' meetings. It's second in a row. Look, I mean, this is unfortunately where we are, but that doesn't mean we should be quiet. We shouldn't be there for our community. They want us to not do this and to have meetings like that and to have resources. So that's, of course, there's any number of policies of which they're going after randomly, depending on the day. But, we really want to show that we're there for the immigrant community, and it's an important, kind of Heather and Doug touched on. This is really affecting, our businesses in town. I had a meeting with Senator Fernandez and Paul Nizwicki, president of the Chamber of Commerce, the other day, and some of the impacts we could be seeing this summer if this continues the way it's going is the Cape is not going to be able to function. So it is important for us as a board and as elected members to be there to host this safe space for the community.
That's great. Thanks, Jack.
So in addition to what the select board members mentioned, in direct response to your question, Board Member Jones, the intent for this meeting last week, Thursday, was to educate. I think we had a planning committee that was formed and involved a lot of members of the community, and I thought that was important, getting different segments of the community involved in the planning of it. Was there any concern? We had reached out. Actually, we were contacted by the Attorney General's office back in early November. They have a team, as you all probably know, federal issues and enforcement team. They're kind of tracking what's happening throughout the Commonwealth. And so we were able to develop some contacts with that group. We actually invited them to attend, but because they're receiving so many requests to attend community conversations or forums like this. But really the intent for last Thursday, and we have, the planning committee has talked about having some additional community conversations, perhaps focused on different topics, different aspects. As Jack mentioned, it has a tremendous impact on our local economy, on the regional economy. And one of the great kind of anecdotal stories that I'll share with you, and I don't know if it came across in the article or not, but I received a couple of emails from people that were sitting at the table. So we had, I'm a bad guesstimator of attendance, over 200 people. It was a packed room at the senior center. And a couple of the comments that we received post-meeting was that how great it was that it was a safe space, people felt comfortable coming out, and the fact that people with different viewpoints, we had several, you mentioned the gentleman from Yarmouth, but we had several people at the table that went into the meeting with different viewpoints, likely came out of the meeting with those same different viewpoints, but the conversations that were had around, we had round tables and literally had some small group discussions after each of or at the end of the meeting, after the presenters had an opportunity to share their stories. So really the intent was to personalize through the eyes and voices of people who have dealt with the issue, business owners, entrepreneurs, people that see the impact on a day-to-day basis, and share that kind of experience with the members of the audience that some of them, when they came into the meeting, had mixed thoughts and maybe doubted that the impact wasn't real, but we believe it is. So that's what the primary focus of this meeting was for. And hearing from the folks after the meeting, thanking us for creating that safe space and allowing people of different viewpoints to sit around and discuss without raising voices. I mean, it was the meeting was everybody practiced perfect civility and was just exchanging ideas and information. And I think that was the most valuable thing. The major takeaway that I had coming following the meeting was that people can still go into a meeting with different viewpoints and perspectives, but share information and perhaps come out with some additional information that they didn't have before. So thank you.
Very good.
Great.
Commissioner Lyons?
No, I just feel that it's so ironic that we're going through this at our 250th anniversary year. It's almost the same battle, but we're fighting ourselves this time. And, for people who don't, say, oh, why do they protest? Well, if they just got out of the way, these things wouldn't be there. That you hear that a lot from people in Minnesota, that are against this. Just, why are they there? Protesting, and this is not the way America has ever conducted its business. We do have safety guards for the public. Some of them are flawed, some of them aren't always executed well, but they are there. So I also agree that we cannot be afraid to back down on that. So I really appreciate the whole approach you're doing, and I hopefully we'll be able to replicate that. And as far as the economics, I'm from the other side of the Cape, way down at Wellfleet, and we also depend on immigrants coming, our seasonal workers coming every year, and now their families are being there was a whole process. I worked in healthcare, so I learned a lot about the immigration process. And it's not cheap to become a citizen, and they work hard to get there, and it's not like something we're just letting people have. They do a lot of work to become a citizen and to have the privilege of working here. So we have to remember that these are people just struggling the way our parents and grandparents did. So kudos to Falmouth. So to date, we'll talk more, but I'm very impressed.
Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, I think we have to be realistic about the situation. If there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who came to this country without going through the process, and we have a very aggressive stance by the federal government, chances are those people will ultimately be held accountable. So I think what we have to do is, and I know Barnstable County has a human rights committee organization that gives people advice as to their individual situation. So I think that appealing to ICE to be nicer is not going to work. What we have to do is we have to deal with the people who are most affected, let them know what their rights are. We also, I agree, have to have people watching to make sure that their rights aren't violated and that they're not. But ultimately, we're going to have to come up with an answer for this, because ICE is not going to stop. And even if they weren't as aggressive as they are, they're determined to bring in literally millions of people in from out of the cold and say, okay, you came here undocumented, you climbed the fence, you swam the Rio Grande, now what are you going to do? And I'd like to have an answer, a better answer than what we're hearing from the federal government right now, to try to make these people, if not totally legal, at least give them some kind of temporary status. And I also believe that we should deal directly with employers here, because it would be very disastrous if July came around and they lost half their workforce. So they have to be up on who they're hiring and made aware of the potential of losing some of their employees should ICE come down and start asking for paperwork and so on. So it's a multifaceted problem. It doesn't have an easy answer, but ultimately what's happening now is not the answer. Okay, that's all I can say.
Yeah. Heather?
Just want to add on to what you were saying about resources, because this is definitely something that we've tried to be proactive about. We do have an immigration resources page linked from the Falmouth Select Board page on our website, and I say this not just for you guys, but for anyone else who may see or hear this recording. Can't say enough what the resources are that are available. There are resources there, Know Your Rights resources in multiple languages, as well as the advisory from the Attorney General, and we also, through our Human Services Department, have a multilingual social worker who unfortunately is only, we only have for 1 day a week, but she is fabulous. And we also have other resources both available through the Human Resources Department, or that they can help connect people to in terms of immigration legal resources. There are any number of organizations, Falmouth Immigrant Rights Coalition, the Brazilian Resource Center, the Human Rights Commission, right, a whole ecosystem, and it can be difficult to navigate that ecosystem, as well as the federal immigration bureaucracy. So we do encourage our residents to reach out for resources to help navigate the systems.
Can I just jump in here, Mark? I mean, I think what's more important is the point of contact between an immigration officer and an individual, and letting the individual know what they should do, what they should not do, what they should say, what they should not say, because, those things can escalate real fast. And it's a very emotional situation for both the officer and also the individual who's being accosted. So, a pro forma statement, saying, okay, something you should say and something you should not say, and the rights that you can appeal to, and say, well, I need a lawyer, or, I'm documented, or so on. And I think that's really what we have to do, is diffuse the situation as much as possible.
There are I know that Indivisible and other different groups that are organized around this issue are providing training. And I thought of that right in the beginning, because when you look at the civil rights movement, they did a lot of training about, you're going to walk in there, you're going to get beaten, you could be physically harmed, and you're not going to fight back. And that is how you win the day. I mean, peace does prevail. But there's a lot of bloodshed between the episode and winning the day. But it is what wins the day, and I really give it to Minnesota. They've been so unbelievable, these people. We should all be proud of them and all call ourselves Minnesotians. But there is training, and I do think that that's what you were alluding to, is how do we, you have these officers, how do you do training, and how do we prepare to be able to resist and yet still be peaceful in doing so? Because it just escalates everything, and if they're going to escalate it, let it be escalated. But so this is something that I think that we have to look at community-wide as far as that, but it's also how are we going to prepare and assist businesses and the people who are coming here to work, the reality of that. So
Thank you.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do, if it's okay with my fellow commissioners, is that they work with the administrator and the director of our Human Rights Advisory Commission to see what degree at the county we can put on our website. We can make available some of the resources that the town of Falmouth is doing, here in this community, and learn more a little bit about how you planned and organized your forum, because I think there are other communities where there's a need for having a dialogue, particularly bringing, you brought your police department into the forum, and I would say that, based at least on what I read, that it was incredibly helpful to have law enforcement there, so that residents can understand what they can and can't do, and some of the advice and words of wisdom that they can share. So I think you've done a great job with this. I think the county can learn more. I'd like to work with our staff to liaison with you to see where we can maybe replicate or link the information that you have on your website, the stuff that you're making available, maybe making that available on ours as well, and look at other ways in which we can provide information and resources and support, because I think what you're doing is clearly a model, and it's something that others should at least, if a neighboring town wants to do something similar to this, it'd be also helpful to know who is it in the town of Falmouth that we should put that person in touch with. So things like that. So I think it would be helpful to have some follow-up from our staff and our team with maybe the manager's office here to see how we can collaborate and work better together.
If I can just add to that, at the MMA, I was talking with some of the Outer Cape Towns administration, and they did point to the county and said, it would be good for us to come out and to really give some guidance and support, because other towns are very much on your page, wanting to do the same thing, a little bit nervous, and there's always strength in numbers, because we can either hang separately or hang together, and I think I'd rather go all together. And there is, once, Cape Cod can't speak with one voice, and I think this is the right voice to speak with, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
In the
Just
interest of
passing that
time,
on.
in the interest of time, I'm going to try to see if we can pick up the pace a little bit more.
Yeah, I know we'll be here all day.
I'd like to ask our administrator and staff if we can talk just briefly with Falmouth's DPW, and are you the tree warden? Bingo.
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the southern pine beetle issue that you're dealing with here, and if you want to add some additional light on this problem, because I want to make sure that we have a cooperative extension program. We have folks that look at
we have our
bugs, and if we can have our bug people work with your bug people, maybe we can get somewhere on this.
Right.
I have been in communication with our cooperative extension. That's how we
good.
found it.
So they
Thought we had it. I brought in.
So you're already working and talking to them.
Yeah, I'm working with the local. I'm working with the U.S. Forest Service and UMass Amherst, and the Forest Health here in Massachusetts. So the problem, I don't know if anyone knows what's going on in the vineyard, but it's devastating the vineyard right now. And how we're going to manage this is really unknown. They're trying different tactics there, mostly forest thinning. It's something we need to think about how we're going to respond because, they go after pitch pines, and Cape Cod is mostly pitch pines.
Right.
And it's all unmanaged pitch pine.
Right.
So the density is very high, and that attracts the beetle and causes it. You think of it like a fire. You've got a lot of close proximity. It's going to burn. It's going to go right through.
Does it create a risk for fire?
It could, yes.
It could,
Yeah.
if not managed.
If
and
not
dealt
managed
with.
properly, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That's great.
unmanaged forests.
So we're going to have to put that on our agenda as well, so thank you.
All right.
Is there also a beetle with the lantern in it? There's,
The lanternfly?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a completely different, obviously, problem we might be having as well.
I think, there's been some of those on the Outer Cape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there possibly could be. We're just waiting for those as well. And with
Won't
beach
be
leaf
long.
disease, our forest health is not really in great shape.
And just to add one more in there is
Right.
the Rocky Mountain tick,
Yes.
which is also devastating Martha's Vineyard as far as the virus. And we've had a discussion on that, and they're trying to really kind of put their arms around where that is. So we have a lot of natural threats coming.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this could be moving very fast.
Yes.
It could,
We don't have a
Do we
picture
have
of
to
it.
really get on? Okay.
no.
Let me-
No.
if
Okay,
we-
so people should just Google it, I guess, and take a
Yeah,
look
we're
at
going to
it
be putting out
recognize
things
it.
on our website, and I'll be sharing that with the different communities and the other tree wardens.
That's great.
Is there any suggestion of a biological approach to this and a predator on these particular beetles?
So I think biological approaches takes a long time
Yeah.
because that could be an issue down the road if it hasn't been studied long enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're working on that. This pest has been around for like 100 years. It's been down south, but obviously it's a different climate, so they couldn't use what they use there. Here, they couldn't model it the same. So I'm sure they're working on that now, but nothing has been released on.
The other question I have, is there a way of, do we track the advancement of these creatures throughout the Cape? In other words, if there's a sighting, your people go out and they notify this?
Yeah, monitoring and tracking it is what really all we can do.
Yeah.
As soon
I
as
think this-
we identify it, we want to monitor it and see where it spreads. And if we take any action, go back to that spot and see if it's still spread after whatever action we've taken.
So we could see it, I could look at a map and I could see this bug advancing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to work with
There you go.
the Forest Service and help us with their aerial mapping, what they've used.
We're going to put this on an agenda for a future meeting so we can have a
Exactly.
much more detailed conversation, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you and the folks here in Falmouth in terms of participating and helping us out with this. Clearly, it's a serious problem that
It
we've got to
is.
deal with it. And we'll be also having an agenda item on wildfire management. The county receives some significant federal funding to help towns prepare for dealing with this. So it's all more or less related in terms of forestry management and threats, particularly fires. So I appreciate you bringing this up and bringing this to our attention.
You're welcome, thank you.
So in terms of the issues and the items that have been mentioned, are there any other items that my fellow board members would like to respond to or comment on?
One more to add, if you think you have time.
Yeah,
right ahead.
Let's hear it.
Doug?
Not much of a discussion, but I just wanted to bring it up. It's definitely a Falmouth-centric issue, and I talk about it a lot, and don't seem to make a lot of progress. The Steamship Authority operates out of Falmouth to serve Martha's Vineyard. We all know that. The service expands every year by a certain percentage, 5, 6, 7%, depending on how the economy is going. And it's getting to the point where Woods Hole has become a real bottleneck, and it's becoming a public safety issue. For years, there's been studies saying that it only makes sense that at some point, New Bedford will have to be a host for freight service. The Steamship Authority doesn't seem to really get on board with that. There was a Martha's Vineyard long-range planning task force, of which I participated as a Falmouth representative. We had many representatives from Martha's Vineyard, from the commission and towns on the vineyard. And, surprisingly, within a matter of only a few months, we came to consensus that really we would vote to direct the Steamship Authority to develop plans to get a port operating, whether it's private or under their own leadership, out of New Bedford or some other port other than Woods Hole. That was the last meeting we had. They canceled the whole task force after that. They didn't want to see or hear from us again. I don't think they were anticipating that vineyard folks would get on board with the idea. So it's been stalled ever since, never made a comeback. Meanwhile, they continue with their plans to expand the Woods Hole Terminal. They've got a new building, another slip which was originally just for using for service and docking. And then as soon as they got it complete, they said, oh, that restriction went away. We're going to use it full-time now. So the story is always changing. Very difficult to work with. We try to cooperate with them with the site planning to make their intersection with the roadway more safe. They put us off and put us off to the point where they finally said, oh, geez, it's too late. We just signed the contract to build the building, and we can't move it now. And, it's Stonewall all the way.
That's very
So
tough.
I don't expect that there's anything you can do immediately.
Right.
I've gone to the Martha's Vineyard Commission and learned that they had interceded when their Oak Bluffs Terminal was being reconstructed, and they held the Steamship Authority to do some things that they didn't really want to do. I don't know if it was architecture or what, but the Steamship Authority then took them to court and got an injunction against them because they are a quasi-governmental agency, and had them removed from purview over the Steamship Authority. And then when the Cape Cod Commission was formed, they used that court ruling as justification to exclude the Cape Cod Commission from being involved. So all these planning agencies are being excluded. The town is being pretty much stonewalled. They gave us a little bit of opportunity to input on the new building. It's a little smaller than what it would have been. So I've tried to intercede with our local representatives. That's challenging because the Falmouth representative also represents the vineyard. I've tried other representatives that are outside the district to try to get a statewide initiative to, challenge the governing authority. And they're like, well, why would I try that? Because it's not broke, so why fix it? Because they're not asking for any money. But eventually, they're going to need a subsidy because they keep on blowing up their budget. They're going more and more in the hole. Their ticket prices are the highest of any ferry service anywhere. It's a matter of time before that becomes unsustainable, and they're going to need to be subsidized anyway. So what I'm hoping to do is build a coalition of political will and then take it to the legislature and hopefully get some movement, because I don't think that the Steamship Authority should be licensing other carriers. Now that the wind industry has slowed down, there's interest from people in New Bedford in whether or not there'd be a Steamship Authority, but yet anything that gets put onto the transit route has to be licensed by the Steamship Authority. It's a conflict of interest.
Right.
I don't think that should be in place. So there's a lot of things I think could be changed to be more improved. So just want to put that on your radar.
No, thanks for flagging. Thanks for flagging this for us. I think, as you've mentioned, it would be important to take a look at how we can better alleviate some of the freight traffic that comes through here. There's no question about it. It's a factor in terms of sustaining the longevity of the bridges. It's always been an issue that's been overlooked as well. So
strategically outside of everyone's purview, but we got to do something.
Yeah. Well, I think what we need to do is we need to stay focused on it. And as you develop your coalition and as you develop your recommendations, keep us in the loop, keep us involved.
Right.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
support that.
All right? That's great.
Mark, can I
Yes.
just ask?
Real quick, Commissioner.
Yeah, there's a ferry service that runs from Harwich to Nantucket. It's a privately owned ferry service, and they must do well because they've been in business for years and years. But you're saying that a private entity could not run a ferry service from, let's say, New Bedford to the vineyard unless they were authorized by the Steamship Authority?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's under the statute.
Yeah, recently the one successful candidate was 41 North. They operate out of New Bedford. Now, Mr. Packer has an operation that was in place before the Enabling Act was, so he's grandfathered in, but he's limited as well. He at one time he tried to move rental cars on his barge, and he got sued. And so the Steamship Authority sued him because they said, hey, you're taking our business. That's our revenue. We need that revenue. So they guard the revenue, and they don't want to share the port. They gave 41 North one trip a day. It's almost like they're trying to make it not successful because they don't want help, because they want the revenue. But they can't have everything going through Woods Hole.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. So that's where the subsidy is going to have to come in.
Right.
Subsidy is going to be needed to develop the port in New Bedford, unless private interests can do enough volume that they don't need to be subsidized. Now that the wind industry's moved out, I've already been hearing from people that are interested to know if it's something that's possible. So I'm hoping to set up a meeting pretty soon, but we'll see.
Thank you, Doug.
Well, I agree, Woods Hole is already under too much pressure from.
It really
from
is.
traffic.
It has been for a while.
All right, what I'd like to do is, we have other Falmouth-related topics that are on our agenda. Our next agenda item is an update from Brian in our Clean Water Center to talk about some of the work that we're doing that is of direct impact here in Falmouth. I'm going to call Brian up. We also have other items on the agenda. Ken Cirillo is going to come up in a little bit after Brian to talk about what we're doing dredging-wise and here in Falmouth. And then I'm going to ask the county administrator to give us an update when his agenda item comes up, to talk a little bit about where we are with composting and that regional initiative that you folks have been incredibly helpful to us with. So, Brian.
Well, thank you for having me
Brian.
today. Brian Baumgaertel, I'm the Director of the Wastewater Division at Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, also the Clean Water Center, our new Barnstable County Clean Water Center. First, I would like to thank Mr. Renshaw for the kind comments during his remarks earlier about the work that we do. It's our partnerships with our towns that really make the work that we do meaningful, so thank you very much for that. I'd like to run through a few updates on a couple of our programs. Most of this is going to be Falmouth-centric, but some of it is a little bit more tangential in nature. I want to start with our septic utility program, which is one that was established, I think we're on year 3, maybe working on year 4 of that program now. The septic utility program, just to remind those who may not be, who have heard about it, and to inform those who aren't familiar with what it is what is called in government parlance a responsible management entity. It is an organization, could be governmental, could be private sector organization, that is responsible for the continuing management of on-site wastewater treatment infrastructure, so really looking at backyard systems in residential areas. When we started the program, we called it RME. Nobody knew what RME was, so we switched to Septic Utility Program because it's a little bit more easily identified. But it is a suite of services that are associated with managing on-site systems. It can go from merely providing what we do now, which is database tracking support for on-site systems, where private sector companies are providing operational data, monitoring, et cetera, that goes into our database, which is beneficial to the town because they don't have to toll all that data themselves, but they do have access to it. And it can go all the way up to RMEs owning the technologies that are putting in folks' backyards. They're managing them, they're operating them, they're sampling them, which is much more utility-like in nature, more like you would think with like a sewer utility. This program we had always intended would fall somewhere in between, very little management and kind of what I don't think we'll ever be able to do in the state of Massachusetts because we're all too darn independent, which is that sort of ownership and management model. So that's the basic concept of what the Septic Utility Program is. Here in Falmouth, we've been working with the Water Quality Committee for a number of years. We've spoken with the boards of health, town staff as well. So the town of Falmouth is right now, and I don't want to speak for them, but I will for the sake of this discussion, they have been going through an exercise of identifying areas of town in which they believe that on-site nitrogen-removing septic system technologies would be beneficial to use as opposed to sewering certain areas of town. They've referred to them as geozones in all their meetings. And these tend to be concentrated areas which are in close proximity to some of the embayments where they don't anticipate being able to sewer in the near term or really at all. So we've been working with them to identify those suite of services that the county could offer through its septic utility program to help the town of Falmouth work through that process. And it's really focused more on the, the sampling and operation aspect of things. So as their plans start to shape up for the areas that they actually want to use technologies in, because they're still in the process of figuring out where the best areas might be, we will be there to provide services if need be. And those services, as I said, could be management of systems. We can help run run the systems, operation and maintenance. Or, as always in the county, we always fall back to, we'll give you consultation. We'll help you set up your own responsible management entity program. The basic concept is we just want to see that these systems are well operated and maintained because we have a large environmental problem we need to fix with respect to our embayments. And if the systems aren't operating to their full capacity, which is only something that can be really affected by effective management of those technologies. So if Falmouth wanted to go on their own, we will help Falmouth set that up. If they want to use our services, obviously we'll be there for that as well. If you look Cape-wide, Falmouth has really become the leader in this area. We used to say it was Wellfleet, but unfortunately Wellfleet is kind of rethinking some of their sewering areas. There's been a lot of discussion in the town of Wellfleet. There seems to be at this time less place for us to work, so we're kind of waiting to see where that falls. And again, if Wellfleet decided they wanted to use IA Technologies, we'll be there to help Wellfleet as we would with any town. The town of Barnstable is also toying with using on-site systems as an option. The reason towns have an interest in using on-site technologies, you could say, well, they don't perform as well as sewers, which I don't think anybody would argue sewer is the gold standard, right? But as we all know, sewers are extremely expensive and getting more expensive by the day, almost literally more expensive by the day. I did the calculation on inflation for just like PVC pipe and like the main construction materials that go into sewers and on-site systems. So if you look at like CIP, which is like our normal consumer inflation, that's like around 3% right now. Inflation over the last 4 years for materials associated with sewers, et cetera, has been more like an 8 to 10% inflation rate. And it's maintained that even up to the present time. It's starting to level off a bit. But so the basic point is, it's expensive, it's getting more expensive, and as a region, if you look back to the 208 plan, the 208 plan said sewering everything on Cape Cod is an untenable proposition, right? So we've identified that we need to find locations where sewer is too cost prohibitive, look for those options that we can employ instead, which a lot of people have argued are these on-site technologies. So we need to have these technologies available. We need to have management options available. And that is really the intent of the program, to try to make sure we're lowering costs associated with on-site management and also raise the bar in terms of how we actually manage them. We have a new field technician starting in February, and with that person joining us, that will be the full complement of staff in our division, which is kind of exciting. That puts us at 20 for our entire set of programs, inclusive of the Septic Utility Program, Mass TC, the Test Center, and Aquafund. So looking forward to having him join us. We've been doing a lot of work towards workforce development. This is a drum that I've been banging on for a while with respect to really the whole industry, whether we're talking about on-site systems or sewers. We face a dearth of people who are entering the industry, and we need to fill those, entice more people to come on board and to give them a set of skills to be able to not only operate on-site systems, but operate and maintain our treatment plants and all these billions of dollars that we're investing in treatment infrastructure. That workforce as it stands is just not there right now. We're putting all this stuff in the ground and we're not going to have anybody to run it. So to that end, one of the things we've started working toward is to put together a set of certification classes for on-site treatment operators to sort of elevate their set of skills and knowledge in operation of systems, and really focusing on those nitrogen removal systems first and foremost. But I think ultimately that is just the start of what we could do through the Clean Water Center. I can foresee the possibility of putting together a whole suite of educational opportunities for any wastewater treatment operator, whether they're dealing with on-site systems or sewer systems, so that we can bring our local workforce up to where it needs to be so that we can actually make sure we're removing nitrogen when we put these plants in, make sure that they're functioning, and also make sure that they're operated and maintained properly so that investment that we're making lasts as long as it possibly can. So that's something that we're working toward. And we're also working on putting together a set of finance calculators and things, and some finance tools to help towns identify the difference between sewering an area or using IA systems in a particular area. This has been a really tough nut to crack. We've been working with the Nature Conservancy as one of our grant partners for a number of years, and they had hired a consulting firm called Nature Vest who had put together this really useful calculator that the towns can use, and they can say, you know, I have a set of 1,000 homes in this area. Give me what the cost differential would be, both short and long term, of using IA systems or sewering in that particular area based on density and a number of other factors. So that's a calculator that's available actually through the website. So that's my SUP update. I have a couple other things, and I'll pause there because I'm going to a totally different topic, so I wanted to offer if you had any questions at this point.
That's great, Mike. Commissioner Lyons.
I just want to point out, you know, when Brian, as he mentioned, Wellfleet is struggling with its nitrogen, and how are we going to approach this? And as they came down and talked about this utility program, and if you are going to go this route, then you know, we're there to help you maintain, and people are like, this is just added cost, and this is a business, and, you know, everybody, but it really is a mandate. It's part of the mandate of the state saying you have to keep an eye on these things, whichever way you go, you are responsible for monitoring. So it's not just, you know, because they feel like creating some sort of entity or another business, because there's plenty to do without it. But so I just wanted to clear that up, and I do think that we have to start thinking a little bit more clearly about, you know, how do we meet a workforce and still protect the environment. So anyway,
Great.
that's all I want to say.
Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, you know, I'm amazed that someone else in your position might be content to just play the hand that they're dealt, but the number of initiatives that you've come up with, just the ones that you mentioned today, are amazing. I can't believe, you would think you'd have a staff of 100, but I know that's not true. But each one of those initiatives benefits us, and it's also on the cutting edge. It not only benefits the people on Cape Cod, but it also benefits people across the country as we're getting into this new technology and we're educating people into it. So, you know, I'm proud of it. This makes me proud to be part of Barnstable County, having the work that you do, and knowing that we are benefiting a great many people beyond just our peninsula. So,
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going to invite Heather if you have a comment or a question. And anybody else from the Falmouth board or...
So I was remiss in not mentioning another challenge that we're facing, and I wonder if it's one that either through the Clean Water Center or other resources the county might be able to begin to get into, and that's freshwater ponds. So we know a lot about nitrogen and our coastal embayments, and increasingly have more and more technology to grapple with that. It's becoming increasingly clear here in Falmouth that we know a lot less and we have a lot fewer resources for dealing with phosphorus entering our freshwater ponds from septics, from fertilizer, from a lot of the same sources, right? But our systems are not built to remove phosphorus necessarily, or even to know if they do. So I'm curious if that's something that's on your radar that the county is starting to address, or whether that's a conversation that we could open and continue.
Brian, do you want to take a crack at that?
I would love to, and honestly, if I started, I'll talk for an hour about phosphorus. So I would actually invite that, you know, I'd be willing to come to the board and, you know, we could have a more substantive discussion about phosphorus. You know, phosphorus in our ponds is like the gift that keeps on giving. We put it in there, it doesn't like to come back out, right? I always say that even if we sewered today around the entirety of our ponds, we've got a problem that's going to be sitting there that we still need to deal with, right? We can shut off the tap, but there's still a latent phosphorus source. So I always say we need to look much more broadly than just the source. We need to obviously address the source, but we also need to figure out you know, how do we address the phosphorus that's in the pond? How do we address the phosphorus that's in the groundwater traveling toward the pond? How do we make sure that phosphorus isn't entering via fertilizers, et cetera? And every single pond is different. They're like little fingerprints, right? We have 800 little fingerprints out there in terms of our ponds. And you need to do a lot of the research ahead of time to figure out the best approach before just rote applying a single paradigm to any one pond. So sewering is part of the option. IA systems are part of the option. Putting in bigger vegetated buffers between houses and the pond shore is a really important aspect, because when people come through and they cut down all the trees and make their nice green lawn go all the way down to the pond front, you're creating a nice conduit for rainwater and phosphorus just to make its way right into the water. So it really needs to be a much more holistic approach towards the ponds. You know, our marine embayments, once we've shut off the nitrogen, they flush themselves out over time, and they'll recover relatively quickly. We've seen that with the Mara Vista project and some of the EPA work that's been done. We're seeing some recovery on that side. The ponds, like I said, even if we shut it off today, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's going to have to be a lot of patience on the part of the people who live around those ponds to say, all right, we've spent a bunch of money now, we're going to have to sustain our effort and do other things in addition to that moving forward to actually remediate the problem.
And it's also educating the public that live around, I mean, everywhere, but especially those that, the products they use, the impact of those products, seasonal people who come and rent those places. I keep thinking we need to put some sort of educational flyer in every rental home, like, do not use these things, just be, respect where you are, because people come on vacation, they're not really thinking that, they're having a good time, and I'm here, I just spent a lot of money for this vacation, I'm going to enjoy it. So it's a huge, but we do have to educate each other and be very mindful about what we're doing.
Commissioner Bergstrom.
Oh, just, I did echo what Commissioner Lyons says. It's the responsibility of the people who live around those ponds to make sure that the ponds are clean. I had somebody come up to me once in Chatham. He wanted to hire some lawn rakers to rake the weeds out of the pond behind his house because it wasn't good for swimming. And I tried to explain to him if he watched more, if he was more concerned about what he was putting into the pond, he wouldn't have the undesirable growth that he has in there. And it's an issue because, and I've seen this from working on the water, you look around, there are a lot of lawns that come down to the water, a lot of lawns that come down to the ponds. And, they bring their attitude of what a house and a property should look like from somewhere else. And you can't do that on the Cape. And the ponds are, to me, almost an untapped resource because it's so, if you have a canoe or a kayak, I go to some of these ponds that I've never been to, and it's beautiful there, and it's not crowded and so on. So it's something that we should treasure and protect the information that people need to understand how they can keep it that way.
I think, Heather, you've hit a nerve.
Yeah.
All right. The reality is that we have a pretty good idea what to do about nitrogen, but we don't have really the game plan figured out yet on phosphorus. There are ideas, there are approaches, but we need to get that problem much further along in terms of creating a clear set of tools and options with financing.
Well, for that matter, to use the fingerprint analogy.
Yeah.
We don't have the 800 fingerprints
Right.
documented yet, right? So even just
Right.
testing, monitoring.
Right.
Yeah, a certain amount, yeah, we can only do so many per town, right? We don't have everything, right?
Hi, Doug Brown. I'd like to make a plug for Brian's program of monitoring the denitrifying septics. It would be great if that was a Cape-wide initiative. If it was a county-sponsored thing, even better. In Falmouth, we're going to have probably about 7,500 folks that are going to be mandated to install denitrifying systems of some sort or another. Maybe urine diverting toilets will save them some money, but we don't even know if that's going to happen. The problem with these denitrifying systems is the owner has to be invested in making them successful. They have to be willing to do the testing and keep up on it. And if they don't work. And if you have people that are resentful of having to pay for it in the first place and then resentful of paying for the monitoring, it's almost a recipe for disaster because then the health agent has to enforce the monitoring and the people are reluctant and it's pushed off and it doesn't happen until they're really forced. So if we had a program where the county was monitoring all of the systems, there was no expense, we'd have honest data, we'd know if it was successful. So I think that's really the only way it's going to be able to be done.
I agree.
Good point. All right, let's move on to now, how long is this going to take,
Yeah, we're
Brian?
going to do a quick,
I'm going to go through, so I have some Clean Water Center updates for you. I'm just going to zip
Right.
through
all
this
right,
real
and
quick.
I don't want to ask any questions.
So our laboratory facility, which is funded through the Mass Tech grant that Mark worked with us on. So we're working through an owner's project manager right now. We've got a design RFP that you're probably going to see in the very near future for that. Hoping that we can get the construction somewhere late this year and get that facility up and running in early 2027. Non-sewered sanitation systems, so this is what we've referred to as the Gates project. So this is the Gates Foundation project. To give you a brief update on that, we are deep into the ISO accreditation process to make sure that all of our facility meets international standards for testing laboratories. We have a lot of site work underway right now to get the site ready for the first test system, which is expected to come in March of this year. So we're humming along really quickly to meet that date. It's a heavy lift, and I've got the greatest staff in the county, which is why we do what we do so successfully, Ron. That company is coming to us from South Korea, actually. So we've had some really late meetings working with them. I'd love to come at some point and give you a much more in-depth update on some of those things, but I'll kind of leave it at that on that piece. And I want to jump over to talk about urine diversion because that is one of the hot topics in Falmouth. So for those, the uninitiated, urine diversion is a very basic concept which says, don't put urine into the waste stream that you need to do something with to treat it and remove it. Separate it out and utilize it as a resource rather than as a waste product. We've been working with the town of Falmouth on a project for, 3 years. Peter has put in extensive time on this. Mike has really put in a lot of time as well to get this project to where it is now. But the ultimate plan is to install a number of urine diversion fixtures within the town of Falmouth so we can get a proper assessment of how well or how not so well the paradigm of urine diversion works. We've had an IMA with the town, $233,000 total over the last few years to get the prep work done for the setting up this bigger installation project. A lot of that is working through regulatory approvals, and there are multiple levels of approvals for this project. Because not only are we dealing with something that DEP has not really fully understood until recently as an option, but we're also dealing with the plumbing board for fixture approvals, and most of the fixtures we're looking at right now come from Europe, and the plumbing board is like, whoa, European fixtures, I don't like that so much. So having to go through that process, Brian Horsley is the lead on this, and I'll tell you, he has done a yeoman's work on this project in just getting the regulators informed and to where we need them to be so that we can move the approvals along through the process. One of the major pieces of this was to identify, once we've separated urine, what can you do with it? Are there safe ways of using it? Urine contains, obviously water, but there's a lot of nitrogen, a lot of phosphorus within urine. It contains, depending on the estimate you're looking at, somewhere between 80 and 85% of nitrogen in our wastewater stream, and a little bit less on the phosphorus side of things. So if the promise of urine diversion is that we can actually take out that nitrogen and phosphorus from our waste stream and turn it into a usable product, then it also would obviously reduce the amount of treatment we would have to do on the other side, right? But we need to find where that can ultimately go and utilize it as a fertilizer. There has been some significant progress there. MDAR, I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but they basically regulate all fertilizers in the state.
It's the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture.
You know what it is. Thank you. They have actually approved a couple of urine-derived fertilizer products. So you can actually order these, I think, online or go into a store. There's one called We Bloom. And there's another, I forget the name of it. They're powdered fertilizers. So they've actually removed all the water and just kept the good stuff. So we need more of those types of product developments to come along so that we can actually put the urine somewhere once we've separated it out. As part of that, again, with the IMA with Falmouth, we're identifying the locations within town that would be most beneficial for the project. We need certain characteristics of the home to make sure we can collect the data that we need to demonstrate whether the paradigm works or not. And that set of assessments is in conjunction with a company called Nutrient Networks, which is later on in your agenda. We have a contract we've been working on with them. They're providing consulting services to help us do those location assessments, among other tasks in the project. And then more recently, within the last round of Massachusetts DEP 319 grants, the county received $417,000 to actually install, operate, and monitor 25 of these urine diversion systems in Falmouth watersheds. The 319 grant program required had very specific stipulations on where we could operate, and the watersheds will all be located in Falmouth. So Brian has been working on identifying those houses, and then once we've identified them using the 319 grant money, we'll be able to subsidize some of the cost of installation so that we can further incentivize what are frankly some very motivated homeowners already, but give them an additional financial incentive to participate in the project. That will allow us to assess the performance, get better data on how much phosphorus and nitrogen these fixtures actually remove, and then also assess that whole management piece of it, the after separation and what you do with it. Is it cost effective, et cetera? Is it a legitimate option? With the ultimate sort of deliverable of this whole project is that the town can then take that set of data and that information, look at their watershed plan and say, well, maybe we allow some urine diversion in this area. It might make sense here. Maybe we can supplement some of our IA systems with urine diversion. There's a lot of different ways you can sort of approach it from that point. But that's the major urine diversion update. There's a whole lot more to that, and I could speak for an hour on that, but I'm going to stop there and invite questions.
That's great. Thank you. Commissioner Lyons.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I can't have people talk about urine diversion without mentioning Matt Patrick, because Matt Patrick was on this 18 years ago. He got a lot of guff when he would bring it up from people in the State House and all around, like, go away, that's not even realistic. And he was ahead of his time, as it turns out. If we had focused more on that, we might have had a better solution than sewering everything. But I have to always think about Matt because he took a lot of abuse by saying urine diversion, but he was right, and God bless him. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bergstrom.
Yeah, this is a topic I tried not to think about, so and I'm glad that we have you to think about it. So I don't have any questions. You pretty much covered everything. Okay.
I'm going to ask our Falmouth friends, any comments, questions? Obviously, you folks are, as you can see, very active partners with the county in terms of doing some very exciting stuff. Doug.
Hi, Doug Brown again. I'm excited to have the opportunity to have people that could have this lower cost option because, as I said, 7,500 folks are going to be faced with either a replacement of their septic with an IA, which could cost 50, 60, 70, depends on where the existing one is and what the terrain is like in their yard. Could be really expensive, whereas this could cost, a fraction of that. We don't know exactly because each house is different, but I expect it to be a lot less money. And also it could be useful. Imagine if we had Cape Cod fertilizer, Cape Cod potato chips sell. Fertilizer probably would too.
There you go.
Yeah, made out of the soil,
Very good.
from the soil. But
Very good.
No, but you also have a demonstration of a urine diversion toilet on the site. So if anybody is not familiar with it and it sounds kind of scary and nervous, I encourage you to take a visit up and see Brian.
Yep. We have one at the Clean Water Center
Yes.
as
And
part
see how
of
it works.
part of the Gates
actually-
project. I'll be very frank. We need to collect very raw human excreta.
We'll all
for
come
that
up after the
project.
meeting.
So through that, we have to devise these.
We'll leave that to you.
Basically, fancy bathroom trailers to collect
Yeah.
material. You will probably see those around at a beach or event near you in the coming months and years as we try to do those tests as well.
That's great.
But
Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Anything else you need to add?
that's it for my updates. I just
Yeah.
want to, as always, thank you all for your support over the years in what we do. Without your support, we can't do the work that we do. Further to Ron's point, I just set a vision. My staff are amazing. They're the ones doing all the hard work. They're the ones who, I hope, are providing that inspiration for you.
They do.
Working with
They do. No, we appreciate
Yeah.
that. And
We feel the
we
same way
appreciate
about
that
us.
we have a municipality here that's very sort of forward-thinking as
Pro-
well,
yeah, very
to work with us to help put these ideas to the test. So thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Falmouth. All right, next up is Ken Cirillo, our dredge czar.
Tough act to follow.
It is.
Phosphorus, nitrogen, and
Oh,
Sand.
you're doing fine.
tree bugs. So I'm Ken Cirillo, the director of the Dredge program. Thank you for having us here. This is going to be a two-part presentation. The first one will be on kind of current projects, where we're at right now, and then we'll kind of roll back on some of the Falmouth work. And stop me anytime at all. So the primary mission of our program really is navigational channels, getting them cleared to their design depth. Secondary benefit has always been nourishing the beaches. And we also see a lot more that takes out, depending on the project, rebuilding shorelines, improving water quality with flushing, and building habitat. This was a large project that we started mid-September in Pompanesett Bay. Every year, we usually do a very small project, 5,000, 7,000 cubic yards, to clear the channel. After 10 years, the town and Save Poppy Bay had a permit to do longer, wider, deeper. It expanded the whole depth basin, the prism of the channel, put a sediment catch basin in. A very, very big lift for us. We ended up using 2 dredges on this project for about 3/4 of the time, which helped on operational efficiency. The overall target volume, it started off very low at about 45,000 cubic yards, and it ended up being 57,000 cubic yards. So it's the biggest project the county ever did, and incredible amount of work by the crew to pull this off in a relatively short period of time under really tough conditions. We lost about 50% of the time of dredging days due to weather, which is much higher than normal, especially for this area. But again, the achievements is that we did two dredges, largest project, and the typical challenges that we always have. Delayed start because of shorebirds that were departing, and we had to wait another 2 weeks into September when we were ready to go. A very hard packed sand, which does impact how quickly we can dredge. So we ended up finishing this project, and again, for the county dredge, really a great achievement. While we were there, we took advantage of doing a small project inside what they call the 1916 entrance channel. So we finished this project very quickly. It ended up being much smaller than had forecasted, about 2,200 cubic yards. But since we had the dredge there, since the pipe was there, we decided to go ahead and do that. We did survey for another project on the inner channel, but there was really not enough shoaling to justify doing that project. Then the long haul to Truro and Pamet. This is an annual project that we have to do for the town. It does require a transit going from where we were in Pompanesett. It can be a 5-day trip, it could be a 2-week trip. Ended up fortunately being just a 2-day trip this time. We moved the dredge from Pompanesett over to Bourne, and then from Bourne all the way out to Truro. And again, we started late. We got there the 3rd week of November, and it took us about a month to get a weather break there. It's a really tough place to work. The project was reasonably large. It ended up being about 7,000 cubic yards. 2 weeks ago, we ended up moving the dredge from Truro to Sissuit, where we are right now. The Pamet project, just to highlight, they have a very big problem there. The toe of the jetty where it intersects the beach washed over a few years ago. They ended up building this core system where they put coconut filled with sand and large stakes to hold it in place, but it's obviously not doing the job. So before we started the project, this is what it looked like, and the town's DPW ended up putting a lot of material on this one spot. Obviously, it's a Band-Aid, and if not, a matter of if, but when, it'll wash over again. They're looking at expanding the breakwater, which really is the better solution there, but that'll take some time. So until then, it's sand. As I mentioned, we're in Sisuit right now, another annual project that we do. This project used to be done, all the way through and up to May when really it was needed to be done. Sand can move incredibly quick in this spot. We've seen in years past that we would be done dredging, we get a 3-day nor'easter, and then sand will just pour right back in again. The town wants this to be done, as late as possible, but unfortunately, due to changes in time of year restrictions, specifically winter flounder, we actually have a time of year restriction that starts on Friday. We'll get waivers to allow us to, continue to dredge, to get it done, but it's a challenging area. And right now, it's frozen solid. So we are really, kind of stuck right now with this week's weather with that dredge. Same thing on the south side, we have our other dredge. We have 2 dredges, by the way. We have a Ellicott 870, these are cut-ahead suction dredges, and a Ellicott 670, 2 large dredges. And the other one here is in Parker's River, but unfortunately, same problem. The river's just about frozen. There's a lot of pack ice in there right now. The guys have been spending the last couple of days just kind of keeping things from having more damage, thawing out, running heaters. And we're probably going to be, hitting the pause button for the time being because it's just not safe right now to be out in the water in these cold conditions. This is a relatively small project for us. We have 2 projects scheduled in Yarmouth. This is the first of 2. So what else is going on? Sort of our motto is dredge plans, God laughs, because we have a plan at night, and the next day, it's changed. We start a great schedule in September, and it falls apart within weeks. It's really a tough job and challenging to think we can control a plan. Planned projects. So, we have a pretty big runway from now to the end of the year. We have a lot of time of year restrictions to contend with, from winter flounder to birds to plovers, horseshoe crabs, and everything in between. And we really have to manage those. And I think they are, really, we are past the point of they are controlling us and we're not controlling them. So we have a project in Bass River, the approach channel. We have 2 projects in Chatham that are pretty large that need to be done, Mill Creek entrance and approach channel, as well as Aunt Lydia's Cove and a very large shoal that's developed because of the break up to the north. The town of Chatham does not have their permit yet. They have 13 months now waiting to get it when it expired at the end of '24. But it's supposed to be any day now, and we're waiting to kind of position ourselves after one of these Yarmouth projects to move to Chatham for those 2 projects with the dredge that's over at Parker's River. Harwich has 3 projects, and typically we do 2 out of 3, although last year we did 2 of the ones that weren't scheduled, just because of some changing conditions and the dynamics of the sand. It's really affecting some of the navigation, especially Saquatucket, which is, a federal channel. Then after that, we'll see what happens, and I'll talk about Falmouth in a second on the Falmouth project. So so there are 4 projects in Falmouth that Greg Frazier, your harbor master, has planned. Green Pond, Great Pond entrance channels, Falmouth Harbor, and the Eel Pond approach channel. So we will do condition surveys where we go out and survey the channels and see what shoaling there is, and then he will decide up to 3 of those projects will be done. What else are we doing? We have received a grant from the Mass Dredge grant last year, and we have until the end of this fiscal year to spend that money. More equipment, we're constantly upgrading a lot of the old equipment that we've had. We are going to be moving and co-sharing space with the former Fire Training Academy, which will give us cover, just sort of a history lesson. We've been in a yard, literally a yard in Dennis at their small DPW facility with a FEMA tent and a couple of old trailers. The guys out there doing the work and building and cutting in the heat of the summer, and now this cold weather outside. So this will be a welcome relief to give us some storage. We have a couple of other studies. One of them is to finalize the dredge permit optimization study. It's at our subcommittee right now, looking at some of the changes that we think we need to help the towns, because permit that the towns need is what drives our projects from the revenue standpoint. As we saw 3 years ago, when the permits were all held up in about 4 of the 5 towns, we went through a period of no projects and no revenue, and it was a couple of years of declining revenue. So we looked at ways to help the towns from a technical perspective, not to manage the permits, but to help as an interface to help ourselves. And we're close to finalizing and bringing those forth to the rest of the groups here. We also just completed a wage review study. The county Dredge did not participate in the county's Dredge review salary review that was done pre-COVID because changes had been made organizationally. So we commissioned a small study to look at the rates we're paying our deckhands and crew and to see what we need to help, have a better compensation package. And another thing we're working on, soon to be working on, is we need to have some way to adjust these dredge rates, because they need to have some flexibility in being able to move them up and down as conditions change, and this will be a new project for us. Just equipment here. Again, we're always purchasing new equipment, and we're very fortunate to have received this grant from the state this past year. So Falmouth, we'll move quickly through this, and then we can have questions. So we've obviously been dredging in Falmouth since the program started 30 years ago, nothing new. Just about every single channel in town has been dredged. A few new ones are coming up, waiting for some permits to be allowed for next season. So won't go through all of the pages here, but quite a few projects. Most we look at as small projects, medium projects. Some of the larger ones one that we recently did was about 4,500 cubic yards when we went inside of Great Pond embayment. And that one was, a good project, a lot of challenges, but a higher volume project. Most of the other ones, as you'll see in a second, can be very small. The last time we did Falmouth Harbor in 2023, a shoal is a shoal. So for us, whether it's a small shoal, like in this case was 694 cubic yards, it's an important shoal that needs to be done because of what it does to restrict the access in the channel. So we have smaller projects than that, and we have much larger projects than that. The Great Pond entrance channel, again, just about every single year this project is completed. Volumes are, again, very low, but a shoal is a shoal, and that's what we do. And it'll take us, a couple of 3 days to mobilize for this project, a day of dredging, and then a couple of days to break down. In 2024, this is the one I just mentioned. This was an interesting project because we had to go under the bridge, and under the bridge means a lot of mobilizing. We had to take the spuds off to go under the bridge, and then when we got back on the other side, put the spuds back in again, and we dredged inside of the embayment, and then all the material, as you can see, all of your dump trucks were there, and they piled up all the sand and moved it down along Surf Drive to build up a berm along the beach there. So we think this was a very challenging but a very successful project for us. And then last year, back to a smaller project, 1,400 cubic yards. Again, the material was used to reinforce some of the area along the beach in Mahot. Green Pond, as you know, has 2 marinas, one under the bridge that restricts the draft of those boats, and the other one has larger boats with a deeper draft. This project, just like Great Pond, Greg, they always want to have it done as late as possible in the season, which presents its own challenges because you want to have it done so you don't have the backfilling and you have it as deep as possible. But then you run the risk of planning and you run the risk of us being there. And as we've seen in other times, you need to get a waiver. We have piping plovers. There's one pair of piping plovers that sits on the east side of the jetty there that caused a little challenge 2 years ago. But those projects, again, need to be done. It's a really important waterway. It's a very challenging spot when conditions can be rough, which typically in the springtime. We're dredging right in the channel, and a lot of swell comes in, so we can lose quite a few days. In 2024, you can see about 2,000. And this really is the larger of the inlets that we do in the ponds. And then last year, again, back to kind of that same 2,300 cubic yard of volume. Bourne's Pond, as you know, this is one that you're working on to open, widen, and remove the bridge and all that. a really tough spot for us to work. It can have some really high volumes, very shallow. You can't dredge there at low tide because it's so shallow that the cuttahead literally can't be on the bottom. The last time we did it was in 2024. It is not on the list for this year, primarily because of the planned work. Eel River last year, this was a very interesting project for us, as you can see. We were right inside, right at the spit on Washburn's Island. We took a little section of the spit that had grown, kind of like a mini version of what we see at Sampson Island in Barnstable, where massive spit goes out and chokes the waterway. Same challenge here. We reduced the dredging footprint to go ahead, and it was about 5,000 cubic yards. Back to the embayment in Great Pond, just a couple of pictures, to show what we actually had to do. Removing spuds sounds a lot easier than it might be, but it's incredibly difficult. They don't come out much unless they're in a shipyard. We had to take the muffler system off the dredge, basically remove anything to give us the vertical clearance, to be able to go under the bridge with very, very little room to spare. So, back to the Falmouth, our Plan B. Right now, we are trying to see, to take advantage of a possibility of using the Edgartown dredge to do some of the projects. Probably, if it's the Green Pond and Great Pond and Falmouth, the Edgartown would do all three of them. If it is just Green and Great, most likely, we would then do the Eel River approach channel. So we're trying to take advantage of an opportunity here, to manage the project as if it's our project. We would be providing the shoreside services, the grading, the pipe management and the grading, and they would bring their dredge over. They have a much smaller dredge than ours with a much smaller diameter pipe, and it's also kind of restricted on how far it can pump, but it fits perfectly for Green Pond and Great Pond and Falmouth Harbor, not Eel Pond. It would be too far. So we're talking logistics. Really it's a win-win-win because it's freeing us up for us to do other projects, and it's giving them revenue that they need and can use, and obviously for us, for the town to have those projects completed. And this year is sort of the unicorn year. Last year, they did not have any projects. They didn't have any projects permitted, so their dredge was not in the water, and the costs of mobilizing and putting their dredge in the water really would have made it prohibitive. But now they just finished Tajmu Pond, and now this gives them the opportunity to bring the dredge across and do a couple of these projects for us. And the plan really would be that we would survey all 4 projects next month, February, and then Greg would determine which of the ones he chooses, and then we'll see where we're at. We're stuck in Sissuit right now, literally frozen, but hopefully we'll get a thaw, and that'll allow us to bring the dredge back over. But with the rest of the lineup that we had from Harwich and Chatham, and now stuck in Yarmouth with that project, it's looking better and better that we might be using Edgartown to do these projects. And that is it.
Terrific, Ken. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is just focus on questions related to the Falmouth dredging. And I'll just start with our commissioners and then ask our Falmouth partners.
I don't have any.
Ron?
Just quickly, obviously, if it would be in the interest of the selectmen and the manager in Falmouth, we operate this as an enterprise fund, and we've struggled to keep, basically balance the books and try to keep the cost down for the dredging. I know we have a dredger advisory committee, going to have to look at that fee structure to make sure that we can cover our expenses, because we're faced with fiscal realities just like everybody else. So hopefully that won't happen, but you should be aware of it as you make, we inform them of any increases.
Yeah, the reality is the list of projects, is unending. The need is tremendous. There's really, literally not enough dredging days in any year to do what we're supposed to do on top of all the rest of the challenges that we have.
Thanks, Ken. I'm going to go to Heather. Heather, you have a question?
Yeah, maybe along with some, could you say a little bit more about the flex rate program that you mentioned?
Yeah, so last year, FY '25 was the first year that we used that we implemented the new rates that were approved by the Assembly. This is the second year. What we had to do to get those rates to be changed, really was quite an effort. A study, having it validated, then going through the process. And we really can't do that again. So the idea that we're looking at with a company that's called Anchor QEA that specializes in dredging work, dredging consulting, is to see if they could design a flex rate structure, taking in all the variables that you indicated that what we would want to allow us to say, okay, we need to increase the rates $5, whatever the number is, by X%, to allow us to have the capacity to make more nimble changes, I guess would be the point, so that we're not waiting for 5 years to do another full study, and then we're in deeper trouble. And Michael, I don't know if you want to comment on that further.
No, I think thanks, Ken. That was a good presentation, but I think you're correct. The flex rate is designed, and it'll go through a process in order to be approved, but the flex rate is really an attempt to manage some of the unknowns in the dredge world. And as Ken pointed out, you have time of year restrictions, which can hit us any which way. You've got weather restrictions, as this week is pointing out. And then permitting delays, which affect us too. So it's an opportunity for us to just see if there's a better way to set a rate and broadcast that rate to all the towns that participate, 14 of the 15 towns. So really, that's what we're looking at.
Thank you. Jack, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the governor's budget is supposed to come out in the next 2 hours or so. And I know that, the last meeting, you brought up the concern with Senator Fernandez and Senator Sear of the potentially cutting the program. So I don't think that it'll be cut. We'll know for sure in the next few hours. I was refreshing my phone, seeing if it came up. But they launched the website, but then it says coming soon with the actual link.
Should we call right now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, because this is so important, as you just
That's
mentioned,
great.
for all of our towns.
Well, we welcome any
Yeah.
updates you can provide us.
I'll keep
Thanks, Jack. Doug, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I was glad to hear Ken say that the rate could go up and down as needed.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, I
That's
think
good.
that's, the point is that when relief is needed, then relief should come. But if we build up enough of a reserve and we can absorb, lowering back to some other level, I think that's the way it should be, rather than just continuing to burden our program and then independently the towns. But it's the early stages. I mean, I think we've identified that this would be something for us to look into to see if it's a better way to manage the rate structure.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Kim.
Did you have a follow-up, Doug?
Is there one other thing that you need to be effective that you're not having right now? I mean, you got 2 dredges. Is that enough?
I'm going to hold that question. We always need more capital investment in our dredge program. There's always stuff to do.
The challenge is,
Right.
is that adding equipment is easy if the money's there, but then the rest of it, support it, is really big. We're looking at what we call explorations, looking at, okay, if we need another dredge, what kind? Is it going to be bigger? Is it going to be capable of being out in bigger sea conditions? Which then brings about other risks, and it brings about staffing. Looking at trying to see if we could have a portable barge where we could put an excavator with an extended arm on it and a big container to do a lot of these, let's say, smaller projects that are tough for us to justify, bringing the whole dredge out, the whole crew and all the pipe. And I think that's a great solution. But again, how does it impact the crew? We are really lean. We have 7 guys.
Yeah.
Do all this work. And I think, at some point, you have to look at, okay, what's that impact of continuing to add and demand more? Because I think that's a great solution for us to have.
Yeah, this is something that we talk about all the time. All right, this is an ongoing conversation. How do we maximize the efficiency of our dredge program, given the limitations that we're always bumping into, particularly relating to permitting and the challenges in terms of just getting to all the harbors that need help? The other challenge that we have is that the feds and the state typically are less and less engaged in commitments to supporting this. The federal government used to maintain half the harbors and channels on Cape Cod. They rarely do that anymore. And so we're always looking to find ways to get some financial support to sort of keep things going and keep us afloat while limiting the burden on the town. So it's a big challenge. Ken's done a wonderful job in terms of the balancing act. It's just unbelievable, the financial pressures that he's been sort of wrestling with, and he's done a superb job in helping make this all work. We don't want to have to go back every couple of years looking for new rates all the time. That's an expensive process. It's very time consuming, and so my hope is that we can find more flexibility in our rate structure so that we can deal with some of the added costs in the future. I want to commend you for connecting with the Edgartown people, because I believe that equipment is relatively underutilized. So if we can partner with them, that's a terrific opportunity for us. What I'd like to do before I continue on much further, I want to acknowledge Vicki Lowell, former county commissioner. Thanks for being here, Vicki. It's great to see you.
Well, I'm about to leave, but I just, for a historic note, the Dredge program was really the child of John Doan when he was county commissioner. He was the one who caused
From Chatham.
the need and felt that if the region could benefit from having a county service rather than each one trying to find a private contractor to do the work.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the efforts of the board back then. I see Phyllis Day.
Yeah, they named a boat after
Yeah, we did. I see former county clerk Phyllis Day here. Phyllis, thanks for joining us. And obviously, former state rep Eric Turkington. Eric, thanks for being here. I used to work with Eric when he was on the select board here in Falmouth, to give you an idea how old I am.
Well, yeah, we all remember that.
Yeah.
Adding to what Vicki said, the first dredge was paid for by the state of Massachusetts.
There you go.
Yeah.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah.
We've always had a big Cape Cod delegation that tends to work together.
We have.
on cases.
Yes, we have.
They're
Bipartisan.
different parties.
And if it's not the delegation, it's the staff, like Jack Richardson right here from Falmouth. So we appreciate all that work. What I'd like to do, in the interest of time, we're kind of pressed for time here. I'm going to ask the county administrator to bring up on the agenda the item related to his report, an update on the composting. And then once we're done with that, that will pretty much complete what I would say our Falmouth-related discussion and our Falmouth topics. And board members, town officials are welcome to grab a sandwich. And if you have to go to another appointment, another meeting, you're certainly welcome to do so. We won't be offended if you have to leave. But if there's no objection, Michael, could you give us just a quick update on the composting?
Absolutely. So we continue to finalize the Upper Cape Composting Initiative with the agreement currently in draft form. Right now, we're looking at costs assessed to the 4 towns of about $7,500 per town. The county will likely pick up about $45,000, which totals about $75,000, which will see us through what we call Phase 2. Phase 2 is siting and securing the property and permitting. So I suspect, that process should take about 18 to 24 months. We'll be working with the military, so it could take 18 to 24 months or 24 years, depending on
That's great.
watching.
The wheels churn.
Right now, the agreement's in front of our legal counsel for review, but I expect it will be ready for execution within the next couple weeks, and we will go from there. Internally, I think, as I mentioned, the county commissioners and the Assembly of Delegates will see a line item for $45,000 that will come from the county to support this particular regional initiative. We're also working within our budget to budget for a project manager that will carry this project right through to completion, and whatever that completion will actually look like. And as I said, right now we're looking at a time frame of 18 to 24 months for review and permitting. Permitting, we need to get permits from DEP, state DEP, federal EPA, and we need to go through an FAA review, and obviously the military will have its own process. So we're well on our way. The entire working group and all the towns are quite aware of the potential cost and where we stand, so we're ready to go.
Can I ask, have they finalized the amount of acreage that you're going to be able to use?
There is a preferred site on the base. The military's identified a preferred site, and it's, I believe the site is roughly 10 acres. It won't, the actual facility will not need that much space. But there's plenty, the military, the towns, the working group has certainly identified expansion possibilities. And so, so this particular site would be able to accommodate that expansion.
Thank you.
Mike, any questions? Heather, Jack? That's great. Okay. Let's move on. The next item on our agenda is the item 6D, rescinding a proposed ordinance 26 to be named, capital fund reappropriation authorized and introduced to the Assembly of Delegates on January 14th. Michael, do you want to give an explanation?
Michael's going to give an explanation.
Yeah, let me give a brief explanation. This one and the next, your next ordinance. We're asking you to rescind this one because this came to you at your last meeting. You passed it. Thank you. And that afternoon, we learned that there were other issues associated with this same project that were going to require additional appropriations. So we retrenched, and we're proposing to rescind this. The Assembly has not taken this up. They have not acted on this. So we're proposing that you rescind this ordinance, and then the following ordinance would be the all-in amount that's needed for the same project.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I move to, Mr. Chairman, I move to rescind proposed ordinance 20XX, capital fund reappropriation authorized and introduced to the Assembly of Delegates on January 14th.
Do I have a second?
26.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
And
Can I have a motion on?
further, I move to approve proposed ordinance 26 to name later capital stabilization transfer for First District Court repairs for introduction to the Assembly of Delegates.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Item F is ordinance 2026-01. This is the capital budget. It was amended by the Assembly. The Administrator has approved the amendments and the adjustments in it. Can I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 2026-01, fiscal year 2027 capital budget as amended and adopted by the Assembly of Delegates on January 21st, 2026.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Item G.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 2602 appropriating the sum of $3,719,215 to the Capital Stabilization Fund established in ordinance 2020-17 by transferring funds from the unreserved fund balance as amended and adopted by the Assembly of Delegates on January 21st, 2026.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. The next item is new business. Is there any other business that has not been reasonably anticipated?
No.
Great.
We can
Next
bring it
item.
later on.
A Commissioner's consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the Commissioner's consent agenda, item 8A, as listed on the January 28th, 2026 agenda.
Second.
And this is one that...
I am going to abstain from this, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Forrest abstains. Let the record show.
Okay.
Thank you. If
and
motion passes. The next item.
is I move to authorize the Commissioner's consent agenda, item 8B through 8G, as listed on the January 28th, 2026 agenda.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is commissioner reports. Do we have any reports from the county commissioners? Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yeah, I would just to say that considering we had almost 2 feet of snow, I think the various Public Works Department on the Cape did a pretty good job. The roads were clear, even the side roads, and they were plowed. I mean, we had some warning for this storm, but still I was impressed. I've seen other storms where that didn't happen, so this one was, everybody did a good job.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I concur with that, and all I can say is that it's wonderful to be in Falmouth. So we don't So other than that, thank you.
Very good. We're going to move on to the next item, item 10, upcoming business. I'm going to turn this over to the administrator. How does our next meeting agenda shaping up?
Your next meeting agenda will be consumed mostly with county budget review for the commissioners and anything else that the commissioners would like to put on.
That sounds great. Okay, next item is county administrator and staff reports. Are there any more staff reports or reports from the administrator?
I just have a couple of items. I just wanted to, again, as Commissioner Bergstrom alluded to, recognize the county staff, Chip Riley, who's our emergency preparedness director, and his group, as well as the AmeriCorps members for staffing the MAC. We did not need to open the MAC, the multi-agency coordination center, but it was staffed. We did not have to open it for this storm, but it was staffed, and it was a great opportunity for sort of a training to make sure that that when we do have to activate it, it is ready to go and operating on all cylinders. And I think that we've covered pretty much everything else. I just wanted to let you know, as it pertains to the Dredge program, I did have a discussion with a number of WHOI representatives and staff regarding possibly figuring out how we can actually quantify the economic impact of the Dredge program to the Cape. I think that's an important thing for us to be able to do. I think instinctively we know that the Dredge program is important. It's been around for 30 years. It's really taken the place of the federal obligations and some of the state obligations with our navigable channels, and now is sort of focusing, as Ken alluded to, on some of the coastal erosion issues and mitigation issue attempts, but we've never really fully assessed the impact to the Cape in a quantifiable way. So I'm hoping that we can really do that over the next year, and if all works well, we can do that with the WHOI staff. Just a reminder for this group, the Association of County Commissioners is meeting in Plymouth, the Culinary Arts Department at Plymouth South High School on Friday, this coming Friday at 11 a.m. So just a reminder on that. And then just a couple of items related to today's meeting. Our county entomologist is available to work with the tree wardens or Falmouth tree warden, certainly, to do anything that the county can offer in terms of entomologist expertise. And I'll make sure that he connects with the tree warden in the manager's office. So, and I'll also connect with Mr. Renshaw on the human rights issues. The county does have a human rights advisory commission, also has a human rights coordinator who does great work, sometimes very quietly, but really does great work countywide. So if there's an opportunity for us to share any information with you, and probably more likely you sharing some sort of process ideas with us, then we'll make sure that communication happens. So I appreciate that.
That's great. Do we have any questions or comments for our administrator regarding his report?
Doug does.
Doug.
I'd just like to say thanks for coming today, and I really think that you guys are really operating probably the most effective county government in Massachusetts, and maybe New England.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, before we move to the next item, which is adjournment, I just want to thank the the staff here at Town Hall, Mike Renshaw and your team for supporting us. I want to thank the Select Board for the outstanding work that you do in representing the community and giving us a chance to hear firsthand some of the great work that you're doing. As you can see, we collaborate in a lot of things. We are vested in your success, and we enjoy working very much so with you and your department heads and your staff. It's a very, very productive collaborative effort that we very much cherish. And as you know, we're always available for a phone call if there's something else that we need to talk about. And we have obviously a short list of items of things that we really want to follow up with you on. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank our staff for the logistics, making sure that we're all organized and everything's working and everything's functioning. So thank you, staff. And so the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Go ahead.
I move to adjourn.
I will second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously. And we're adjourned.